Well, thank you for joining us in this conversation. Today, the 27th of July 2023, we are going to have a discussion that is centered around economic transformation and especially addressing the cost of living and engaging youth in the labor market. This discussion is brought to you by the Center for Multi-Party Democracy in partnership with Uraia Trust and the Royal Danish Embassy through Danida. And before we go deep into the discussion, and before I introduce my panelists, I would want to recognize the organizers who are present with us and invite Mr. Mwita to make the opening remarks and introductory remarks in that case, and as well as introduce his team, which is present with us in this discussion today. So at this juncture, let me welcome Mr. Mwita to make his remarks. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Bwana Moderator. I was not actually expecting to speak here. It is my colleague Mbuvi who was to make the introductory remarks, but we want to thank you so much on behalf of CMD Kenya for your time, all of you participants on this call, and also the panelists for having found time to be part of this important conversation. I understand that the topic of discussion today is centered around the economy, and you remember we have been talking about economic transformation since the time of the elections, and also now after elections we are continuing to discuss about the same, the high cost of living and what we are going through as a country. It is important that we as young people find time and a platform to have a conversation on what can be done to ensure that we have sustainable economic transformation that can also be able to give opportunities to young people who bear the brunt of all the problems that come with the challenges of maandamanos and also high cost of living and also things to do with unemployment and the like. So we want to thank you so much, my colleagues here, and also our partners who will be joining us later for finding it feasible to organize this conversation. Our thinking is that we don't need to have to talk and also not find practical solutions, that even when we are going to do a petition to a relevant or a memorandum to a relevant institution for adoption, I think we need to come out from these engagements with very practical proposals on what exactly can we be able to do to ensure that the issues, the challenges facing the country from the economic perspective are addressed in a sustainable way. The country has been bleeding for many years since because of the post-election problems, pre-election challenges around the economy and also the economic hardships facing different sectors of the society. But I think even if we are 10 or 12 or 15 or 2 people, we need to be able to propose practical challenges, practical solutions to the issues facing our country. And I think that is the essence of this meeting, that we are having a conversation, but yes, what is the way forward? What are our proposals on issues to do with economic transformation? Here, I want to appreciate my colleagues here. I have the organizer here, Muthengi Mbuvi, who will be with you throughout the call. I have my colleague Arbe Isako. I can see my colleague Baraza David. My colleague Jemutai Ruto, and also I think those are the ones that we have. But we thank you all, and I wish you fruitful deliberations, practical solutions and proposals, so that we can use them to engage with different sectors of the society in the days to come. And I want to give it back to you, Elvis, the moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mwita, for that introductory remark. And we thank you for providing an opportunity for the young people to have this conversation. Quickly now into the discussion. I know the word economy or economy has been discussed so much. You'll hear many Kenyans talk about uchumi, imekuwa ngumu, the economy has become hard. And therefore, this is not a very new term to a majority of Kenyans. But now, maybe to just start us off, Mr. Muita has highlighted the situations that Kenyans have been grappling with since post-election violence to the COVID-19 pandemic, now to the drought situation in the country that even worsened the economy the more. But now, let me bring on board Josephine Nyamai at this juncture to just define to us, what does it mean to speak about economy? What does it entail? What does the economy entail broadly?
Good afternoon, and thank you, Elvis, and all the panelists that are joining us. So I'm called to just define what it means about the economy.
You can introduce yourself as you start off. I didn't
Great.
introduce myself, so you can introduce yourself as you proceed.
Great. My name is Josephine Nyamai Warunge. I am a budget coordinator for the Coast Regional Budget Hub. I am also a co-founder of an organization called Kenya Budget Talk. We deal with budget matters, policies, research, and analysis. So back to this discussion, I'll be joining as a panelist, and I've been asked to define about economy. But economy is very broad. Economy as a term is very broad, and it has everything to do with the production of a country, the contribution of the country through different sectors, be it manufacturing, be it agriculture, be it wage, and everything that pertains that. And when Range was speaking, he spoke about how we have been affected, and therefore political economy of our country, or how politics affect economy, and how our economy is affected by our politics, then it's something that we cannot ignore. So economy has everything to do with the production of a country in terms of what they bring in board, in terms of gross domestic product, the consumer prices index, the cost of purchasing stuff. I think that is the best way I would put it is for layman's language. Yeah.
Thank you for that definition, because it's important to put that into perspective, as many people talk about the economy, but all you'll always hear is that the economy is high, but what is it that constitutes? What are the indicators of an economy? You've rightly put about the consumer prices, the inflation, the unemployment, the taxation rates. All these constitute the economy, and of course, they can be divided further in macro and microeconomic terms. Now, based on that definition, I just want to ask Juliet to tell us what she thinks about the current economy. Are we heading south, or are we heading up in terms of our economy in the country at the moment, in your perspective?
Thank you so much, Elvis, and thanks to the organizers for the opportunity to speak and have this dialogue, and also really great to see all the esteemed panelists. So from my side, in terms of my reflections, and to start with the most recent activity we've had as a country, and that's the general election. I think it has placed us as a country on our next development chapter as Kenya. So we've made significant political and economic reforms, which I feel like have really strongly contributed to our sustained economic growth, social development, and also political stability. And I quote stability over the past few months that we've had that. However, I also think it's really important to mention that we've also experienced key developmental challenges, and which has exacerbated the rates of poverty. We've had issues of inequalities really being prolonged, and also the youth unemployment rates have increased in the recent past, not to mention aspects of inflation, aspects of the balancing of trade in terms of our deficit and the competition between our exports and imports. We've seen us importing even the very things we used to champion in production, for example, maize. So as it stands, it's devastating to mention that economically and looking at aspects of development, we're not doing well as a country. And this has been informed by the political instability that we have experienced in the recent past. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliet, for that, for bringing out the different aspects, the balance of trade, the inflation, and of course, even as we speak about that, reports indicate that in the first quarter of 2023, Kenya's economy expanded by 5.3%. Kevin, do you agree with that? Or do you feel that we've actually expanded as an economy?
All right, thank you, Elvis.
As you introduce yourself as well, take this chance to introduce.
Sure. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I hope we are all doing well. My name is Kevin Onyando. I'm a photographer and a communication specialist, and I've been in this field for close to 8 years now, and I've had the opportunity of collaborating with several organizations and to help them effectively communicate what they do, and also to tell their stories through visual storytelling. And coming back to this discussion, and so to the question that Elvis has raised, has actually asked, is there's indication that the economy has grown by 23%. I think the economic growth, there are also a lot of aspects that maybe define economic growth of a country, and those ones are, they could be things that are not necessarily, can be pinpointed by maybe a common person. And unless those numbers or figures on those economic growth indicators are brought on board, and then they're able to be digested in a form that can be able to be understood by the common person, then I don't think that the element of economic growth can be something that is felt by the common person. Actually, the common person in the streets, if you tell them about that, is the economy has grown by 20, maybe 23%. I think the response they will give you that I don't feel that growth, and maybe on the contrary, they would say I don't see economic growth because the current situation right now, the situation right now is people are really grappling with a lot of burden in terms of the cost of living. So talking about economic growth in a country where everyone is talking about the cost of living going up and people don't have money in their pockets. So maybe those other aspects that maybe might be brought on board to consider what really economic growth in a country is, then I wouldn't say I would someone would convince me that there's been economic growth by maybe that percent of 23%.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for that. As you rightly put, of course, I just mentioned that 0.3%, not 23%, to be clear. But again, as you've rightly put, maybe the parameters that are used to measure the economic growth do not resonate with the common mwananchi. So let me bring on Wanjiku on this one. What really matters to the common mwananchi when it comes to matters economy?
Thank you for having me. My name is Wanjiku Thega. I am a gender justice advocate or activist. And at the moment, I lead African Women Leaders Network as the lead for political participation of women in politics. What matters to Mwananchi, and that came out really strongly during the 2022 campaigns, was Pesa Mfukoni. You know, exactly, just having money in your pocket to be able to transact, be able to take care of your family, being able, you know, we have both breadwinners, both as men and women in our families. So having money as a woman or a man to be able to take care of your family. And we sadly, there have been a lot of issues coming from post-COVID, from post-election post-COVID and then post-elections now at the moment. So the economy hasn't really stabilized, and we know the year before elections, the economy has to drop down. Investors hold on tight to their purses. So money in circulation in inakuanga kidogo, it's very little, it's very minimal. So, and with now the maandamano, you see investors are still holding on to their purses and they're unable, they really don't trust to invest. So money has been little circulation. I know as leaders, you'll get a lot of phone calls from people to say, I'm sleeping hungry, you know, I'm unable to afford this, I'm unable to afford healthcare. So at the end of the day, for common
You can hear me.
Yes, sorry. So for a common mwananchi, it's what I'm able to transact on a daily, and exactly what the goods that we used to buy every day. For example, food like a bar of soap, milk, mafuta ya kupikia, unga, such necessities. Are they able to afford as they used to? So those are the kind of metrics that a common mwananchi will look at.
Thank you, Anjiko, for that. Thank you so much for that, bringing out the perspective of what really matters. And I think that is at the level of common mwananchi. But Dominic, based on all that discussion that we've had, and even as you introduce yourself, please tell us, how have you been coping as a young person in these tough economic times? What mechanisms have the young people been employing to survive, at least through this period? Dominic, did you hear me?
No. Kindly kidogo.
Let me repeat. I'm just asking, everyone in this panel has spoken about how tough the economic times have been. What mechanisms have the young people, and especially you from your own perspective, been employing to survive through these tough economic periods?
I think that people have really suffered so greatly because of this tough economic times. And that's why many young people are the one who have been involved in a political demos that happened in the last 2 weeks. And as we know that unemployment rate in this country is too high. So young people are still suffering. And the only coping up strategy was to be involved in digitization through the content creators, through the online performance, for which now the government also have imposed some taxes on it. So to young people, I think the only innovative measures that they arsenal was only through online platforms. Kelvis? Okay. Am I lost?
I can hear you. I can hear you, Brian.
Yeah. So I think personally, I can engage on various platforms like e-commerce, first I'm the national chairperson with the disability in Kwepa Party. So I'm creating some t-shirts to create awareness about called the form of disability. And those money, I'm helping my people to start up the entrepreneurship things. So the only platform I was using was social media, Facebook, Twitter, IG, and I think bado mambo ni mbaya.
Thank you, Brian, for that introductory remark, bringing out the perspective of the different ways in which young people have been working around. And so, Alan, I know you run an association for very vibrant young people. How has it been during this period, trying to ensure that the association runs, you pay salaries and all those kinds of stuff in these economic periods, even as you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Elvis. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
My name is Alan Chacha. I'm the CEO of USPAC. USPAC is Universities and Colleges Student Peace Association of Kenya. It's an umbrella that brings together all the institutions of higher learning that was founded because of the Garissa incident. That is what triggered the formation. In regard to the question, first I want to apologize for coming late. I know I joined a bit late because of the jam. I wasn't able to join exactly by 2. So you bear with me, I sincerely apologize for that. Regarding the current economic hardship, especially in the student perspective, I think one of the biggest challenge has been, and you've seen, because of the economic situation, the hardship, many of the politicians, and they use young people just because maybe somebody doesn't have a coin to really even sustain himself. So it's very easy to really use this young person to even cause havoc. So this has been one of the greatest challenge, because you find that there are different places that you can easily get young people, and or you can easily mobilize. The reason being, this is because of probably the economic situation is a bit down. So you can easily go to a university, you can easily go to an institution of higher learning, and it will be very easy to mobilize these young people as low as 200, sometimes even 100, and maybe probably informal settlement. So this has been very challenging to us in regard to the current situation. Elvis, I don't know if that is.
Thank you, Alan.
Sorry?
Yeah. That's in order, and of course, bringing out the aspect of making the young people then very vulnerable from easy mobilization. And we've seen, as Dominic as well mentioned, that a lot of young people have been used, even during the number of young people die in that space. But now, we know all these, and all of us have highlighted about the issues that are affecting us, especially in terms of the economy. But I believe there are opportunities. And so I'd like to just ask Josephine, what opportunities exist for economic transformation in this country?
Good question, Elvis. So the first thing that we want to look at is what plan does the government have as far as economic transformation is concerned. When you look at the budget policy statement for this year, 2023, the government is aligning itself to what is calling the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, the BETTER. And in that, the government has several plans that they are proposing to undertake in order to enhance or rather achieve the economic transformation agenda. And we must go back to the plans, because according to the Public Finance Management Act, if anything is not in the planning document, then we have no discussions about it. So if you look at the medium-term plan 4, which is the second last plan under the 2030 agenda by Kenya, and also the fourth plan for implementation. The government has highlighted 5 main issues which they are putting a lot of resources. And when the government says that we are putting resources, then that means it is the priority area and all finances are going to be channeled towards that. So the first area we look at agriculture. Agriculture, we have the issue of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. We have the issues of housing and settlement. We have the issues of healthcare, of course, the UHC, and of course, we have what you're calling digital superhighway and creative economy. And key is to look at what is the government saying about each and every agenda that they have. And because I represent the young people and also the young women, if you look at micro, small enterprises, according to the Kenya employment report for 2023, we are seeing that a lot of employment came from the informal sector. Yeah, from the almost 80% was coming from the informal sector, which contributes to the job creation and employment. And you find that most of the young people are self-employed, and some of them, they run what you call the micro, small enterprise economies and opportunities and small businesses. But the big question we want to ask ourselves: what are the government interventions about it? And I would say the plans that we have are very, very good. But the question we want to ask ourselves is, yes, there are the opportunities, but is the government really committed around that? Yes, we can see resources have been allocated. But from where I see it, I would say, as much as the government want to help the young people and the least disadvantaged, like, the women, people living with disability, and even the children, you have vulnerable children. I think the policies sometimes they are very retrogressive. For example, right now, this is what we call, the government has come up with several funds, including the ASLA fund, the existing funds such as the youth employment project, the KISIPs and all that you have. But right now, I can tell you for free, for every young person who wants to do a startup, maybe for a business, that is very possible. But looking at the current taxation and the tax regime and the reforms that the government is bringing on board, it proves to be a little bit difficult for that to be achieved by the young people. Secondly, if you look at some of the policies that the government has in place, if you look at the projections of revenues and expenditure, you find that the government has a very high financial deficit, and the deficit here is the difference between what the government is spending vis-a-vis what they are collecting. And what does the deficit mean to young enterprises, to the young businesses, to even industrialization that we see as an opportunity? Now, for example, a very good case scenario is that the government is planning to spend around 3.6 trillion for the first year of implementation of this economic transformation. Part of that money, I think around 2.9 is coming from collection of revenue in the country, and that is from taxation. I heard someone spoke about the digital content creation and what have you. So in the event that the government does not achieve the collection of that revenue, that they mean they are going to finance through borrowing. If you look at the rate that the government is borrowing domestically and even externally, that itself crowds off the micro, small enterprises that are run by the young people, and even to an extent, the bigger population that is running the micro, small, medium enterprises. So for me, I think we have an opportunity, we have a good plan, but again, it's like the government policies are retrogressive. They are like the saw that cuts in front and back. And at the end of the day, they end up crowding off even the private sector, because if the government is borrowing and I am running a small business, then the government is more likely to be given a loan. And as a young person, and as a young woman, I will not be given that loan. And that means the micro, small enterprise is going to crash down. So there's that opportunity. The second opportunity is around the government supporting employability, transfer of employability skills. We have people who are graduating year on, year out, whether from the universities or from the TVETs. But can we see the link between the skills that they learn in school and transferring that to the job market? So that is another opportunity. And I don't want to speak about everything because I also understand that we have other panelists. But for me, if we had to enhance economic transformation, that the government has to relook in some of the policies that they make across, whether on the micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, and also the taxation policy that they put on board, because they are hurting even the small companies. And also the issue of debt. It's a discussion that the government has to address if we are to achieve this agenda. Allow me to stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine, for that broader highlight of what the government needs to do. You've talked about having the commitment to implement the policies as they are. Kevin, of course, in the recent budget statement that was made, there's a lot that has been done according to government to ensure that they support employability, which is something that Josephine has spoken about, especially around the digital space. Do you think enough has been done, or how better could this be done to ensure that those young people who are out there in the digital space, online content creators, are supported better in a better way to ensure that their work then feeds them and supports them in their own way?
All right, thank you, Elvis, for that. Was so for yeah, there's a lot that has been done, or there's a lot that is planned to be done, and speaking maybe to people in the digital space and the people that are consider that as a source of income. I think it's a plus that they got when the government, of course, decided not to raise the tax as it was proposed, and that is also one way of also encouraging the content creators, of course, to be able to create that content for the consumers. And maybe one of the ways that maybe government can further support that sector is providing avenues that these content creators can be able to channel out content that can be monetized, because you find that most of the content creators, they don't actually get income from the content that they create. The content they create are they're more often entertainment. So it is from the entertainment they're able to get maybe let's say sponsorship, or they'll work with maybe companies or other organizations that are then they can maybe like ambassador or to promote whatever, to promote their products, then they'll be able to earn from that. So also the other way of ensuring that more content creators are supported is of course, and the element of the element of the element of also increasing the employability. And some of this, you find that some of these content creators, of course, not everyone who goes in the content creating platform, they are able to maybe earn a living or create content that can be monetized in day 1 or day 2 or day 3. So you find that the content creation journey it could be very long for people who are maybe joining right now. The people who maybe are the people who have been in that space for long enough are able to maybe earn the benefit of longevity, because this one is a service, not a product that you can just come with it to the market. And of course, everyone is on board. People have to know it. People have to understand what it is that you are selling. Yeah, what is it that you are presenting, and also maybe to note the other aspect of maybe increasing employability of maybe the youth, not necessarily maybe in the content creation space, is ensuring, because we find that most of the youths in this country, and as rightly put by the head of state, it said that the most of the resource that we have as a country, of course, is human resource. And when you talk about human resource, then you talk about labor. And you find that most of, as has been mentioned by a fellow panelist, that most of the employment opportunities, they arise from the informal sector. And you find that this informal sector, they are driven by, of course, people who might not necessarily maybe have the formal the formal education, but they have the expertise, and some of this expertise, they can't be, they don't have maybe the papers for those particular expertise. And maybe talking to also the Ministry of, the Department of Industrialization, there's something they are coming up with that will enable people to be accredited. And by being accredited is you are being able to, your skill will be recognized in a form that now, let's say, for instance, you are maybe an artisan. You've not gone to school, you don't have the papers to back up that particular skill. And that is maybe what bars or makes the employment opportunities limited for the youth, because you find that as a youth, you might have that experience, but you might have the know-how, but then the papers block you out because you don't have the papers to justify your expertise. And so being able to give these people, or allow these people to have papers based on their skills and based on their experiences will also enable them also to compete for opportunities that require people to present papers, because you find the most labor force, of course, in this country, you find it's experience driven, but the employment opportunities are paper driven. They are not experience driven. Yeah, you find people. Will miss out on opportunities because they don't have the papers for that particular, maybe for that particular opportunity that is being called for, but they have the experience. So government being able to recognize those experiences and expertise and give those people papers that match the standard of qualification that is required will also enable them to compete effectively and favorably with people for those particular opportunities. And that's another way that the government can also increase the employability among the youth. And also it's being done also maybe under TVET. And the other one is, of course, also enabling youth to appreciate the other value chains, that the other economic drivers. Like, for instance, right now, what could be more important as maybe something that would be considered sustainable, it's banking more on the renewable energy. And by renewable energy, I would maybe think more about solar energy and biogas. And also you find that also on that element of employability.
As you wind up, maybe you should move towards concluding on your point so that we give there's a chance also to contribute. But I like the aspects that you're bringing on board, the aspects of recognizing experience among young people and giving them the papers that match the qualifications that they get, of course, appreciating other value chains, our economic drivers, including renewable energy, and just supporting the work that young people are already doing for sustainable economic transformation and growth. Juliet, do you think there are other opportunities for sustainable growth and development that the country has not pursued at the moment?
Thank you so much, Elvis. I think most of the opportunities have been mentioned by my panelists, but I think I would like to strengthen on the aspect of technology and innovation. And I think, and a lot of youth are present today in this call, there are platforms like the Kenya National Innovation Bridge, which is now giving the youth opportunity to showcase their innovative ideas and solutions to the public, and also potentially get opportunities to partner, and also get opportunities for funding for their projects. I think it's we are having a gap in awareness creation as a country because these platforms exist, but are not in the access, or rather the youth are not yet privy to their existence. Another aspect also which has been mentioned is to put more emphasis in intentional education and skill development. Also, this is something that is taking root quite in the country with now the adoption of the CBC, which is also very debatable as to the impact and approach of it. But I think it is really key in ensuring that young people also get an opportunity to identify their potential at an early age, and not be able to not really rely on government and the existing opportunities in the country, which are few as compared to the population of young people. So investing in education and skill development for young people is key, and also strengthening our vocational centers, because as it has been said, and I can't emphasize enough, vocational trainings are providing more opportunities for young people for employment in the country, as opposed to the formal sector. So that calls for the government to really put more focus on establishing centers to be able to accommodate more young people, and also to be very intentional in terms of the kind of trainings that the youth are being given, to ensure that they are up to speed with the current market trends, and also considering the necessary expertise that are currently needed in the industries to ensure that we increase the overall productivity of our young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet, for that contribution. Of course, bringing aspect of technology and innovation, which is quite big in terms of economic transformation, skills development, and of course, more centers to accommodate more young people through vocational training to give them capacity to effectively compete out in their space. Now, to twist this a bit, Josephine began by speaking about having very nice policies and legislations around various economic factors in the country. But the problem is always about securing the commitment or the implementation of these policies. Dominic, maybe if you, in your opinion, how can we get this commitment, and how can we ensure, how can we make sure that then the policies that we have, which are very nice, are implemented by the government or the people who are relevant in that space? How can we get their commitment?
I think we can get those commitments because majority of these legislators are from our political parties. And in every committee, there are those members who are representing the interest of the people. My view is, as the young people of this country, we should be fond of reading and do more research. That even today, if you meet a young person in the street of Nairobi, name one MP who is in, maybe, let's say, in foreign affairs committee. So it's so difficult for young people. At some point, we assume that all the MPs are in all the committees, in National Assembly or in Senate. So it is our role as young people to maybe to look for those documents about the committee placement of our member of parliament, through your parliamentary, maybe parliamentary leader, because I think every parliamentary party, it has a parliamentary secretary. Like in my party, we have Macau and Mbui. So I can request Mbui to share with me that committee placement of my members. If I have an issue regarding cuts and these cuts about the youth, because last time when I checked, it is very unrealistic for a young person in this country who wants to use a public facility like Kuru Park to record maybe some of his work, the content creators, and it should pay a minimum cost of 5,000. I think that is a punitive way of collecting a revenue without knowing this young man maybe is in bracket selling our resources. Maybe now like Kuru Park is a recreational facility. Through his work or her work, the public domain, not only in Kenya, maybe in East Africa and in world at large. Kama mtu hajai visit Kuru Park, atapata the basic information on how Kuru Park looks like. So, like young people and these like-minded organization like CMD and the partners should also educate some of us. Maybe those youth who are in these spaces, but due to geographical disparity, there's a young boy maybe in Turkana or in Sirare who can committees of this country. So those information should be easily accessed to the public domain. Yeah.
Thank you, Dominic. And of course, bringing in the role of Parliament in ensuring that government is held accountable and ensuring that government is able to do what it is, because I know Parliament is tasked with the mandate of ensuring, of oversighting government and ensuring that government is able to do that which is supposed to be done. And of course, you've clearly brought out the need to have Parliament play its role more often, and of course, working even to the level of committee levels. And I'm glad that you're bringing out the perspective of young people also understanding the role of parliamentarians in committees and how that work then can inform the work that can hold the government into account. Someone on chat has just mentioned, Evelyn Madai, we also need to diversify the economy beyond the traditional sectors like agriculture, which contributes the highest to Kenya's GDP. We need to capitalize on areas such as ICT, innovation, manufacturing, etc. by investing in research and development and creating an enabling environment for those who venture into these areas. And now, Wanjiku, I want to bring you here and of course highlight that normally we have a lot of budgets that these different sectors that have been mentioned. Even through the beta model that Josephine highlighted, the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. But a lot of the problem that we've had is the issue about corruption. A lot of resources are located to different sectors, but they end up not doing that which is supposed to do. And therefore the net effect becomes then negative. How do we ensure, how do we ensure that this money is actually allocated to the different sectors, actually end up getting the work that they are meant to do?
Thank you for that. Sorry. Corruption has been one of the greatest impediments to progressive and development growth. And most so, it has led to women being underrepresented because we find most of the people who are raped out are women, especially whose money or receive money is mandated for women development. You find them that that money is corrupted or it's taken away from them. So I know according to Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, they have the plan of creating a Kenyan digital superhighway plan. And during last year's International Women's Day, President Ruto announced that from his 50 billion Hustler Fund, 50% he allocated to the Women Fund. And this Women Fund was supposed to, fund cottage industries for women. So having an USSD where you are able to access money, if money is under a digital superhighway, you're able to trace if it's stolen. So being able to put up frameworks that are able to really monitor money, to really monitor budgets that are set aside, particularly for women, especially because I'm a gender, I advocate for women. It's so important. Above all, it's also looking at money. There are monies that you see that have been set aside for maybe women in extractives, and nobody follows up because people don't have information. Again, like Dominic Keter said, if people lack access to information, then they don't know. So if people do not know that there's money existing for them, because women are not homogeneous. There are different women in different sectors. So if women in a different sector, let's say, for example, in extractives, are not aware that there's money set aside for them, then they are not able to claim it. And that's how your pesa itaenda chini ya maji. Nobody is going to claim it. Nobody is going to follow it up. So access to information also ensures that corruption it's really checked on. And also, again, just to ensure that we have a prosperous economic landscape by weeding out corruption, is having cabinet secretaries who are very key and very intentional about supporting Kenyans. For example, like right now, I'm seeing the Minister for Investments and Trade is putting up aggregation centers across Kenya. And for example, in Isiolo, Isiolo, we see the livestock sector. We lost about 300 billion because of the drought. And now Isiolo he's setting up an aggregation center there that they're going to take care of the livestock and everything. It's a whole economic zone that has been created. But what are the gender lenses in investing in Isiolo? We still look at policies. We don't have gender responsive policies. Women still cannot access land and property. So we are seeing money going directly to men at the end of the day. And I'm seeing a poll. Let me just close so I cannot continue speaking. So we still see that money is still going directly to men. We don't know if there's money mandated for women. And if it is there, if we don't know about it, it's a potelea. So again, it will go back to information and how can ministries put out information that relevant parties are going to access. And that's what I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjiko, for those. I think you've brought out clearly the issue about frameworks to monitor the monies that have been set aside, proper frameworks to ensure that the money is monitored, how the spending is done and all that, and information to access, just ensuring that as many people are aware about the different monies that have been set aside for different projects by the government, and of course the intentionality by just the, we can call it the moral aspects of the people who are appointed to the different spaces of influence, especially at the level of cabinet secretary, the intentionality to ensuring that the work is done as per required. Juliet has also said, I forgot to mention the critical role of research in identifying specific skills gap in the job market and gathering of data to inform sound policy making and educational interventions. As we wind up on this first bit of the question, I just want to bring Alan, being in the civil society space, how can government, private sector, and civil society collaborate to achieve the economic resilience in the country? Alan.
Thank you, Elvis. I think one, how we can really be able to provide is to provide us spaces like this. Because sometimes you get that either government or civil society, we use, we are not at par with the reality. So really, we really need to have more platform to really to bring the people whom we are targeting. For example, as we speak right now, I think there is a gap in that youth are normally classified as one. But the reality is that we have different categories of youth, and each of them have different perspective, and they are facing challenges differently. For example, we have youth in college, we have youth out of college. Youth out of college are further divided into two. They are graduate, people who have graduated, and there are those people who maybe probably they were not able to drop out. The challenges, the perspective of life is very different. If you currently look at the manifesto, including even the current government and even the previous one, more approach has been, especially youth out of college, and the approach more has been targeting especially the youth, let me say the dropout, the border guys, but we forget about these other people. Because if you look at, for example, a young person who have graduated, maybe currently tamarking and looking for a job, that person, the challenge and the perspective that is, how he faces, how he looks for the life is very different. And if you ask him about, for example, the current opportunities that are there, you'll find that it's very different. If you look at a youth who is currently in university, how probably is looking at the current opportunities that are there. For sure, we can say that there are very many opportunities. Government has been able to provide a lot of opportunities, but the only challenge is that one, the intended person, either they don't have the information. Number two, you might find that probably even the bureaucratic processes that are there. If you send a young person to go and borrow money from youth fund right now, many of them actually are able to borrow because of the processes that are there. You will be asked so many documents that you'll find it's very difficult. Apart from that, for example, in institutions of higher learning, that is the hub of innovation. How much effort has been done to really tap on these opportunities that probably are in the institutions of higher learning? Are they the places that currently maybe the government is focusing? Are they the places that even maybe, let me say, if you're talking about innovation, all the people who are interested in innovation are targeting? Then young people, innovators, are afraid even to showcase or come out with ideas, because the moment you come out with the idea, it's stolen. You know, if you talk of even currently M-Pesa, the young person who was able to innovate the M-Pesa is not the one who is benefiting, and many other. So these are some of the challenges that for me, I think must be addressed. And maybe just to add another thing, you ask especially on—
And even as you add on to that, you could also kindly speak to us about, I know there's a model that in your institution you're working on, which is bringing together the civil society, which is you, the government through Youth Fund, and even the private sector through other investors. How has this collaboration been working? Is it very easy or is it difficult? Because I know it is targeted at ensuring that the young people are able to save as much as they can. So you could tell us about the interaction. Has it been very easy, or are there ways in which the government can make these processes very easy to ensure that there's collaborativeness in such kind of initiatives?
Thank you, Elvis. I think one of the first things that we did actually is to really map out who is doing what, and how then can we be able to bring that person to our perspective. And our perspective is university student. For example, we have an activity, we have a program that is called the GSOT Youth Economic Empowerment. It mainly focuses on saving, young people, providing a platform for saving. The first thing that we looked at is, we went, for example, this Youth Fund. What does Youth Fund offer? We looked at the opportunities that are there. Are they really addressing maybe probably the student? And we had a conversation, for example, on saving. Previously, we never had, Youth Fund never used to have saving where you can be able to save, and then using your saving, you can be able to be given loan. That is something that we were able to lobby. And I think this year, beginning of this year, Youth Fund was able to establish. As we speak right now, we are lobbying to see if they can have a specific product that is meant for the student, in that a student lifespan within a university is 4 years, maximum 4 years. How then can you be able to tap on these 4 years so that the little that young person will be able to save you can use the history, you can use the commitment, you train that person. Then before you give him that loan, that person has really, he has the mindset, he has really understood what he wants. Because one of the current challenge that is there right now, majority of the people are being told, kuna loan hapa, come take this money. Many young people, they go in group of 10, they are given 100,000. The moment they step outside, they say, how much is it? It's 100,000. How many are we? We are 10 people. If you divide, that is 10,000. Give me my 10,000. And that's why you have seen women enterprise has really, especially the one that is targeting, has gone very up, but for the youth is facing that challenge. So for me, one of the things that I feel is that we really need to map out who is doing what, then how then can we build synergies? How can we, if this person is doing this and he has strength in this area, then how then best can we really tap on that strength instead of coming up with the same thing, and yet maybe there's another partner who can be able to really support that. And that has worked very well for us.
Thank you.
Okay, that has really worked very well for us, because right now we have brought almost all the actors, including the education actors, that is the academic, the university administration, the student administration, other government actors, and other civil society. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, because I know that is one of the aspects, and you brought out building synergies and tapping on the strengths of the different players. And I know that one is an example, is a model of how civil society is working with government and is working with the private sector to ensure that then a product comes up that supports the young people. Now let's go into the next bit, which I think is also a build up to what we've already discussed, which is about entry points to add value to the labor market. There's been a lot of discussions. Unemployment rates in the country are currently on the high. Kenya at the moment has about 75% youth. About 40% of this population is unemployed. And I just want to hear from Juliet, maybe as a first one, being a young graduate who just graduated recently, how difficult is it to get employment in Kenya? How has been the experience? What is the experience of the young person getting out of university into the labor market? I know there's been talks about difficulty even in joining or getting attachments or internship opportunities. So Juliet, could you tell us more about that?
Thank you so much, Elvis. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, we can hear you.
And all right, and thank you so much for that question. I believe myself and others who are joining here resonate so much with it in terms of challenges in trying to get employment. So I'll start with one of the, I think the most common change that a lot of young people face when they go out there, and that is the expectations. And when I talk about expectation, I mean expectation from the employers and from the job recruiters out there. So one thing that is very typical of Kenya is that for an entry position, you are already required to have at least 2 years of experience. And in most occasions, they don't actually consider attachments and internships as part of the experience. And also to mention on the flip side, as young people, we are also not aware of this reality that really hits us or strikes us once we graduate, that we need to have this hands-on experience before getting out there. So the big question is, how then do we gain this experience? Why is it at campus? Don't have, high equity value. So one of the key ways of going about this, which actually employed, was to seek for opportunities by the campus. When this is hard to balance, it is the reality on the ground that with all this, and it's hard to secure jobs. So as a young person, it's really important that we accept that the situation currently does not for a young person, especially as a girl. There are a lot of gender inequalities, and that when you convert it out clearly, so for a young girl, it's even harder to compete in the corporate world. A lot of male chauvinism out there, and for you to for some opportunities. Just for instance, I'm a research associate. I feel dominated by men. So how do you position yourself to accept that?
Really, it looks like I'm not getting you clearly. I don't know whether it's my end alone, but I'll get back to you. Let me go to Dominic and ask the same question. How different is it, Dominic, for especially persons living with disability to access employment opportunities in the country? How difficult is it?
I think I love to say one. You know, to someone like me now, let's say, you know, I'm a graduate of BSc Environmental Science, and I managed to attend second class honors upper division. But now in Kenya, majority of employers, they are measuring the intelligence of a person like with the intelligence of a person in Kenya is being measured on how fluent you are, not based on meritocracy or pragmatism of the person. Many person with the disability are being job employment. To them, a person with disability is like an in the company, and the majority of them are yet to be employed, regardless of our constitution size. Make sure either in county or in national government, 5% is being reserved for the person with disability. And even Kelvis, you are a good researcher, both in a political field and in other field. Even some counties, even to nominate the representation of PWD was a problem. And you can imagine now that is in a public domain, in the face of the country, have been denied their chance to represent their people. How can you be a person without disability speaking for a person, representing a man in a topic that she doesn't know? So it's the same in job opportunities. They've been discriminated, like in schools, in jobs, in social life, and I think it's so unfair and inhumane. At this century, we are still complaining about our rights. Yet we must shift from complaining, from being discriminated, to now tackle the real issue that is affecting the real world, like the climate change. So we are still in cold era about inclusivity, and it is something that I'm really praying before 2030. The discriminatory of PWD should be like history in our country. If they're employed, they are being paid a low wage. Not because they're incompetent, but because yani, to these employers akiangalia mlemavu wa tanaona ni shida, then give him or her the chance akifail now unaweza mvuta, but we are yet to achieve the minimum required percentage of inclusion of PWDs in this country.
Thank you, Brian. Dominica, sorry, for bringing out that perspective of discrimination. And I think it's clear that there are some counties that actually did not even nominate persons with disabilities into the county assemblies as is required by law. And of course, sector, it becomes a very big challenge. In the narrative that there's a skills gap between the youth and the current employment opportunities that are there in the country.
Another thing, Kelvis, before I forgot, kindly.
Okay, you can finish your thought and then I'll come to Josephine.
Another issue that is, you know, I'm also a youth, and now I'm falling into two categories. Many young people, we are still complaining about the sidelinement in job opportunities. But I think given the limited access to networking, I can use the reference study of QSPAC of Kalan Chacha. I think majority of young people who are members of QSPAC, they're easily connected with opportunities in this country. It is good if even our country should also increase their awareness and sensitization for and partnering with private and public organization for more networking of these young people, because it's not all of us should be employed in county or national government. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, Josephine, back to you. There has always been this narrative that there's a skills gap among the kind of, and especially boiling back to the education system and the current job market. Do you believe there's the skills gap, or what is the problem?
Good question, Elvis. So the issue of skills gap, I want to begin by underscoring the fact that I said, when you look at the young people, we cannot treat them as an homogeneous group, yeah? And for us, if you want to look at the statistics, for example, I think the literacy rates in the country currently stands at around 84%, with 70.1 being people who have at least attained primary education and at least tertiary education part of it. So on the issue of the skill, and I will go back to the point that I earlier mentioned. When you're talking about young people who are transitioning, and let me just give a breakdown of how young people group should be treated. Like, for example, 0 to 4 years. These are young people who are getting ready to start attending ECDs, for example, and then from there there's a transition from ECD to primary level education. Then from there, there's secondary, primary to secondary school transition, which is, of course, around 13 to around 17 years. Then there's also now the age that is the productive age, according to the economics, is 15 years to around 65. These are people who are contributing to the economy. And now, of course, the young people who are aged between 18 and 24 years, and now from 25 years to around 34. So if you look at that category and how people are transitioning from institutions, now, number one, there's the issue of course, there's the employability and skills gap when it comes to the marketplace. For instance, a graduate will transition from school, and they get an internship with the government. Okay, they are being taught, but if you look at the sustainability of it is very limited. Unaenda pale unapiga mwaka moja wako, unamaliza, unaregea nyumbani. So at the end of the day, you don't know what to do after you're done with the government internship. Well, is the government trying? Yes, the government is trying to provide that internship. Is the government trying on the skill side? Because we are looking at employment not from the modern, or rather what we call the formal employment only, but we're also looking employment from the informal sector, as I said. So if the government, for example, is giving people in the informal sector some money, startup capital to start maybe business, someone, if they want to venture into farming, mtu hajui bookkeeping, hajafundishwa about savings, financial literacy, how you separate the profit from the stock money, and so forth and so forth. And that is why Elan said, you find that if we were 10 of us and we were given 100,000, then people will just divide the 100,000 among, because there is that skill gap. So what we are trying to say is that if the government is to, if we are to achieve, and this is not the blame and to the government alone, because I believe there's also the role of the private sector, there's also the role of the CSOs, and also the government on their side. But the government has the resources. So if we are to achieve this, then we have to bridge the skills gap that already exists. Another point is around bridging the skill gap and looking at the ICT and the technological advancement and access. According to the new fact sheet by CRA, the current internet access across the country stands at 22.1%. Those are the only people who have access to internet. And it is more even worse in the rural areas. Yeah, it is more even in the rural areas. And we are saying that we want to transform young people. So if someone was even to venture into smart agriculture, the green finance, for example, as the government is suggesting, then they lack that skill. So there's a very big gap between transitioning from institutions of education to the labor market. And I think there's still, all is not lost. There's much that can be done for the government to be able to support the young people. Number one, there is increased employment in the formal sector, support informal sector, because in the formal sector, basically the problem is matching the skills. Yeah, unapata mtu uweza kafanya kitu lakini at the end of the day they do not have like the requisite skills to sustain that, because the key word here is sustainability. If a young people has begun a startup, how best can they sustain it? And that is missing. Third thing is about those finances exist for people to access them. But if you look at the modality and the criteria for distribution and allocation of those finances, then it is wanting. Yeah. For example, if right now, and those funds, they don't only exist in the national government. We all have our 47 counties. Each one of you come from a specific county. For example, if you look at the previous county integrated development plan, you will see all sorts of what they call youth revolving fund, whereby youths are supported. But what is the sustainability, and how is the creation and the distribution criteria for such finances? Is the issue of inclusivity considered? Yeah. And I will give you maybe a very good example in Kwale County, and I am quoting because it is a county that I have worked around in budget in matters budget. There is the government scheme around bursaries. Yeah, that is in the previous administration. There was the county scheme around bursaries, and then we also have the civil society, of course, and then we have the multinational company like Base Titanium. So you find that in one ward there will be a lot of concentration of people who are getting money at the expense of the others. So the ASLA funds, Kenya Kenya Youth Employment Project, if it has to be sustainable, then the government, number one, has to revise the allocation criteria of how those people access. Number two, they have to create awareness. And number three, they have to ensure that there's follow-up skills. And number four, the place of data in planning cannot be ignored. And I think by so doing, we will have addressed the issues to do with skills gap, and also try to link the graduates to job market. There's also another opportunity whereby they can collaboratively work with the private sector, maybe Safaricom, for those that transition from the internship positions. Instead of staying home, you can pick 1,000, these other company can pick 1,000, and so forth, because we'll have a lot of graduated young people, and then they have nowhere else to go. So that is my submission as of now. Thank you.
Thank you for that submission. And now, still on the same, and maybe to bring Juliet back to finish her thought around the issue about our education and how it prepares us for employment. Do you feel there is a gap, or do you feel that the society just does not want to bring on board new people or new energies into the market?
Elvis, and I hope I'm audible now.
Yes.
Kindly confirm. All right. Thanks.
Yes,
so in terms of education, it is two-faced, in my opinion. Number one, when I first give my submissions, I talked about the CBC and then the potential of the CBC. Now, looking at the quality of the Kenyan education for the past years, it has not been aligned with the needs of the job market. So this has brought about mismatch when it comes to the skills that we possess. I mean, the skills that young people possess and the skills that the employers are actually looking for. This has been, as for the next time, been missing in our system. So we have created young people who think that by virtue of just going to school, they are entitled to jobs, which is not the case. When you look at the reality, we need to have learned about other soft skills, which were missing in the education system. And just to mention other challenges which I was talking about, and I like that Alan Chat has brought about the formal education, the gap between formal education and industry expectations. That's what the employers actually look at when they want to hire someone. About experience, how do you expect a fresh graduate to have 3 years of experience, for instance? How do you kind of rank an entry-level job by looking at a master's level of education when we know our economy and the question of limited access to resources, which even block many young people for accessing higher education? So if then we have this high percentage of young people not getting access to even basic vocational training, then their competitiveness in the job sector is in turn affected. And also, I think one thing which is not coming out and is really a huge problem in our country is the question of corruption and nepotism. I'm sure in one way or another, we have all seen this. So this has really made it very hard for merit-based hiring. And now many people have been disadvantaged for the young people without what we term as connection in Kenya. So the issue of corruption is really eating up. We are having brain drain because young people opt to go for opportunities in other countries because the situation in Kenya does not favor them when you talk about issue of corruption. Another thing which is important to mention is the question of, or rather the rural-urban divide, where many opportunities are found in the urban areas. So what happens to the young people in rural parts of the country? Do they just sit and do nothing because they are locked out of the opportunities? I think it's also, lastly, it's important to mention the challenge of entrepreneurship. And what I mean is we know that another alternative to formal employment could be young people venturing into entrepreneurship. But this is also a challenge because many of them now counter different obstacles ranging from funding, bureaucratic red tape, limited access to markets, and just to mention a few. So there are several challenges that young people face when it comes to seeking employment opportunities. But I also would like to flip the coin and say that another thing which has possibly hindered young people from seeking jobs is soft skills, which I talked about, and they're not. Okay, we can partially blame the education system in Kenya, but I think also as young people, we do lack the necessary mentorship when it comes to the emotional intelligence and the soft skills that are needed for the employment. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet. And before for highlighting, of course, soft skills, experience, corruption, rural-urban divide as main factors that are affecting the young people's entry into the job market. And now, Alan also had highlighted in the chat box the issue about experience. I know USPAC has been a very good hub for nurturing fresh graduates and even at sometimes university students into the job market. Alan, please tell us, how has this been helpful and how impactful has it been in the journey of these young people that you've seen come through USPAC and transit to other job opportunities?
Thank you so much, Elvis. I think this has been a very big success because many of the young people have passed through USPAC, and through some of the network that we have and the partners, they have gotten maybe internship, and through that it has ended up them getting jobs. Because one of the biggest challenge that is there right now, like the previous speaker said, many young people, including just getting an attachment, has really become very difficult. So if using our network, sometimes when young people are looking for attachment, internship, we can easily be able to call and ask whether there is that opportunity, and then we send them to go and apply. Then secondly, especially in government, our recommendation is really taken very positive.
Alan, before you go to government, I just want to hear you out on this. USPAC has been taking up as an institution in itself, young people who are sometimes in universities, and even some of them who have just completed universities with no experience. How have they been working for you at USPAC? Do you feel they have the capacity to do better and they're just lacking opportunities?
I've lost you.
I can say USPAC has been a hub, and you've been taking up university students and sometimes those who have just graduated without experience. How has been the experience working with them?
I think one, of course, if you take maybe somebody with experience and somebody without experience, the amount of time that that person without experience will take to accomplish the work probably will be long. Number two, you will find that maybe probably because of lack of experience, the quality of work that that person without experience will be able to produce will probably be different. But I can tell you for sure, everybody must, even if you look, nobody started from just having experience. All of them started from somewhere. And you must get somebody to really mentor you. So for us, the experience has been, as long as those people are eager to really learn, they pick it very fast. And number two, why also it's very important in picking new people or fresh persons to really lead, sometimes they bring new ideas. Because you find that sometimes really having the same persons, they will be operating year comes, year go, with the same approach. So with us, really taking the new, the young people who maybe probably they are fresh, they really bring the energy and the new ideas, and maybe probably that has really been able to really assist even in terms of our expansion and maybe succeeding in our activity. There is a lot of benefit in really taking this young person who is coming and bringing the new ideas, the new energy. As you may know, a young person, the energy in a young person is not the same with maybe probably the energy with somebody who has maybe many years. So that has been also our experience. Maybe also to add what I was saying, especially even from civil society, from sometimes even these recommendations, they really matter in the job market. So these young people, even when they participate in these kind of activities, that certificate is quite important. Because you could find me and Elvis, we have the same qualification. The only difference is that maybe for me, I participated in this kind of forum and I got knowledge. Maybe for me, I've volunteered and achieved in 1 or 2, 3 activities. So for me, I think sometimes, however small you think it is, ensure that when you're engaging a young person, not money, but you can be able to give them even certificate of participation. They really assist in the job market.
And thank you, Alan, and for the work that you're doing, because I think USPAC has been that one institution that has been bringing on board the not experienced young people into the space, and of course, channeling out more experienced and better people into the society and to do other things. And of course, to the challenge that you've given to even the civil society, that little recommendation matters a lot in terms of ensuring that we support the young people to get other better opportunities out there. Wanjiku, as we move on to this, during the next level of this discussion, how do we get out of these challenges? Of course, they have been highlighted, the issue of soft skills, the issue of experience, the issue of nepotism and corruption. How do we get out of this so that the young people are actually able to compete fairly in the job market and get employed?
What a tricky question. Elvis, I think the issues of nepotism, it's about integrity at the end of the day.
Alan, kindly mute your mic. Okay, proceed.
Thank you. So the issue of nepotism is just about integrity, because this is at individual level. Because if you are in charge of offering employment, then you're the one who gets to make, you're the decision maker, the sole decision maker. And if you are committed to ensuring that there is economic inclusion, if you are committed to ensuring that youth are not underrepresented in business spheres, in the economic space within Kenya, for example, or Africa, or whichever sphere you're in, then it means that you have to hold yourself accountable. And that's why I think when you are signing, or when, especially with government opportunities, we usually have, you are asked, are you compliant to Chapter 6? Because, and then you are a patriot and so on and so forth. Because the national values includes not being non-partisan, you have to be non-partisan. And again, above all, you shouldn't be nepotic, and you should be accountable and integral. And that's why also, if I think in March, I attended the interview for being a chief officer in Kiambu County for the youth. Those are the questions that you are asked. Once we give you these positions, who are these people you're going to? Because as a chief officer, you are the accounting officer for the ministry. Who are you going to be giving businesses to? Are they people you know? People your brothers and sisters, your friends, or will you fairly put them through the procurement process and offer jobs or tenders to the right or the most qualified supplier? So it goes back to us as an individual. Am I an integral person? Do I hold myself accountable? And that also, you can also have friends who can hold you accountable. Because unaweza teleza saa zingine, but also have people who keep you accountable at the end of the day. And we have to agree, Kenya is a great nation and we have many tribes, and that's not a detriment. Having a lot of tribes is diversity, and which is good. And so you have also to be committed to bringing all kinds of diverse backgrounds to the office. It's just not one community being in the office getting all the employment opportunities. You also have to look at diversity. And above all, look at the gender as well. And that's why even as women and young women, we speak about addressing to that gender role. as you are offering employment, look at your office. Is the truth that gender role being observed? Give opportunities to both men and women at equal, or equally in your offices.
But again, the issue about Chapter 6 has been actually implemented. It's just a formality to get people into offices. What can then be done differently to ensure that the people actually who have gone through Chapter 6 actually live to that expectation? Because many people have argued that Chapter 6 is just a formality to get people into offices, but they end up getting there and doing the complete opposite.
I think that's why I say, like, for example, because at the end of the day, this is a very individual mandate. At the end of the day, most of us ran for office, and some of us didn't even have good conduct, but you find people paid their way out to get a fake good conduct and be able to run for office. Nobody gets to check you except yourself. And that's why I am pushing for personal accountability and integrity. For example, I work in a scouting office, and among the things that we are doing is bringing back integrity and personal responsibility to young people. And we are bringing them from the young age of being a scout as young as 8 years. So when you bring people up with the consciousness of being responsible, of being integral, and reviving national values to people, to young people, they grow up knowing and holding themselves accountable. Because right now, tunasema samaki mkunje angali mbichi, and that's why that's what we are doing right now. Because with grown-ups, you can see people get into office and do what they want. And maybe we can say this is how they grew up and they don't have personal consciousness. But for us, this is where we are trying to integrate such positive values so that we can bring up a society that is very conscious, that's disciplined, that is integral, and it's transparent. So that at the end of the day, the kind of leadership that you are bringing out and you're churning out, the kind of leaders, not only leaders, kind of citizens that we're churning out into our society, get to really honor and obey Chapter 6. Yeah.
And you could still on you, because I know this is a very integral part, and we have institutions that have been put up, ESCC, for example. Are they doing enough, or is there some capacity gap in ensuring that they are able to do that, which then is pertain to them, because they are supposed to look at the issues of corruption, the issues about ethics and everything around that?
Sadly, we say that these institutions are independent, but that's not really what happens. For ground different. There's a lot of interference from the investigations, from them wanting ruling, the kind of ruling they give. It's really compromised, and it affects or it affects or incapacitates them from really honoring and following up the Chapter 6 at the end of the day. So having free independence is what can really empower these institutions. And sadly, that's not there. But it's a call to action to our president to ensure that these bodies remain independent and so that they can be able to function. After all, if they are not able, then these are the people who turn corruption and incapacitate our government and our country.
Thank you for that, and for holding you for that while. Now, Kevin, as we wind up on this bit, you are in the digital space, technology space. How can technology and entrepreneurship then be harnessed to create more job opportunities for the youth? It's clear that the formal sector in itself does not have the capacity to employ the number of youths that are each year. And of course, according to statistics, about 50,000 youths come out of institutions of higher learning. That is universities alone per year. So how can we harness technology and entrepreneurship to create more job opportunities?
Thank you, Elvis, for that question, and also for the panelists that have gone ahead of me. Yeah. I think one of the ways that, of course, we can that technology and entrepreneurship can be put into place, of course, to be able to create more jobs is the government itself supporting supporting entrepreneurship, and by that being able to support entrepreneurship program from schools. Yeah, having these programs in schools, colleges, and even among in the communities, because you find that there is no graduate that comes out of the university that they want to be an entrepreneur. Everyone comes out that they want to be employed. And you find, if you find yourself in entrepreneurship, is because you've not been able to find employment. And then entrepreneurship is always, most people find themselves in entrepreneurship as a fallback, or something that you want to try as a result of not getting employment. So if we have programs and programs in the schools that support entrepreneurship, so that from early instances, people recognize entrepreneurship as a way to go, not necessarily coming out of university to look for employment, then that's one way that, of course, people can begin to appreciate entrepreneurship, and also being able to be supported from the universities. And then this one will be able to maybe offer also, and then this support can be in form of course, through mentorships, and then also being able to bring opportunities in terms of finding opportunities that these people can tap into. So that is one way. The other way is being able to have incubation centers, yeah, and or incubation centers. Like, for instance, right now, if you ask any person maybe in this country of any incubation center they know about, they'll tell about maybe Chandaria, yeah, and that one maybe is domiciled in KU, yeah. So if we have more of these these incubation centers to help startups, yeah, and also accelerators to help startups be able to nurture their talents, to nurture their their innovations in early stages. Yeah, this one also will be able to create more opportunities, and people will be, and of course the population will be able to appreciate technology and entrepreneurship as a way to go, because right now you find most of these employment opportunities, of course, they come from entrepreneurship. You find we've talked about the amount of percentage that the MSMEs are contributing to the economy. Yeah, it's huge, and that one also falls under entrepreneurship. Yeah, so I believe one of the ways that the government can also be able to support into that is having incubation centers and acceleration and accelerators, to be able to support the youth in their startups. And the other one is tax. They could be offered incentives, yeah, to tech startups, because you find that most of the tech startups, most of them bootstrap, like they source for the funding themselves. Very few maybe source for funding outside, but most of the startups you find that they are self-funded. Yeah, so if government can offer incentives, maybe for instance, they could offer maybe training opportunities or even tax incentives, because some of these startups, they never go past the stage of maybe starting, yeah, because of maybe lack of funds, at the same time maybe the cost of doing business, yeah. And I think in Kenya, the cost of doing business is really high. It's really high in terms of the tax that you're required to pay. Yeah. So if government can also think of offering maybe incentives that can be able to encourage startups in the technology sector, that will be able to accelerate these areas in terms of people being able to
thank you.
access these services.
Thank you, Kevin, for that. And I want us to wind up this discussion. Some of our audience, like my friend Paineto, Peter, looks like they're running low of glucose, and you can see them yawning. And so I want us to wind up this discussion. And in this final topic of the cost of living, I just want to give everyone a chance to, in 2 minutes, as even they make their final submissions in this conversation, to speak to it. And of course, in your opinion, what is it? What are the underlying factors that are contributing to this high cost of living in Kenya? And how can we get out of this? How can we address them in both the short term and in the long term? So I'll give each panelist a chance to speak to this in 2 minutes. And this will also be the final call to all of you to make your final submissions as we wind up this discussion. Just speaking to the underlying factors contributing to the high cost of living and how this can be addressed in the short term and in the long term. So I'll start with you, Wanjiku.
Thank you for the question. What I think as my final parting shot, and what I think how we can really address this is that I know the government right now is going to go into the bipartisan talks, and I'm glad that our opposition leader has agreed to have a sit down. But this is what I would recommend. We are not seeing women being involved in this dialogue process. Research shows that when women are involved in peacemaking or peace building processes, there's 64% higher chance of success. When women are absent from the peace building or the dialogue process, it's 10% chance. And this is why it's not working. So please include women in this bipartisan talk. Let women lead this conversation, because among the reasons why we have high cost of living is because the country is unstable. We can't have mandamano 3 days a week. That means we only have 2 days for work. This is for the professional sector, and for the rest, if you're not salaried, that means that hakuna pesa unayepeleka kwa mfuko. You just have 2 days or 3 days in a week. So my parting shot is involve women in the bipartisan talks. Let women lead these discussions, because with women, there's a higher chance of success than with men. Thank you for the opportunity, Sandy, and I'm happy to have been here.
Thank you, Wanjiku. Thank you, Wanjiku, of course, bringing out that the cost of living has been affected greatly by the mandamanos, and you want the bipartisan talks to be inclusive of women. Let me hear from Alan what his thoughts are around the causes of this high cost of living and how can we get out of this in 2 minutes. Alan.
Thank you so much, Elvis and other colleagues. For me, I think my reasoning is almost the same like my previous person who has spoken, but I think also global issue or effect is an issue. Of course, putting into consideration even the war in Ukraine, Russia has really affected. And that's why if you look at globally, then you will be able to see
Looks like I can't hear Alan. I don't know whether I'm
the cost
only
of
one.
living has provided and conducive. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Sorry. I was saying my reasoning is similar to the previous speaker, but global issue is one of it. Of course, looking at the war, for example, in Ukraine, Russia, and this is something that has triggered down up to Kenya and other countries. So that could be one of the reasoning. Number two, hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
My internet is weak, but thank you for that. Also, we have local issues. For example, the politics. We have seen continuous politicking, and this has really made it very difficult, especially for business people. That is to provide an conducive environment to really do the business. Then also corruption is one of the issues that I can say has really affected. And especially my appeal to the two leaders is really to sit down and dialogue. And this does not require any other, because the only people who will be able to really, especially bring sanity to this country are the two, that is the leader of opposition and the president. We call upon them to really, for the interest of Kenya, find if they can really be able to, even if they close themselves in a place, and discuss for the interest of this country. And maybe my final appeal is also to, especially to the employers, don't be afraid of employing somebody who doesn't have it, because you are the one who will be able to mentor that person, so that that person can be better person and also really pick the position. Because all of us, even where we are working, will at one time we retire and leave it to the other person. Then also accept young people when they are making mistake in the job. Because sometimes you find that many employers are very harsh on young people when they make mistake, but there's no any other place that you can make mistake apart from that place. So it's an appeal to many employers. When you are working with a young person, just know that that is the place that you will be able to make the mistake. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Alan, for bringing out the global issues, politics, corruption as the key causes of the high cost of living that we are experiencing in the country, and of course, bringing out the advice of the dialogue between our political leaders to solve this stalemate and bring back sanity to the country and create a conducive environment for the economy to thrive. Let me hear Dominic Keter on this as well. Issues that are contributing to the current, the same question maybe, and how we can get out of this, the recommendations. Dominic. Dominic, if you could unmute and speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, my parting shot is this government should focus on some policies like the fiscal policy, the monetary supply side policy, and exchange rate. Our currency every day is weakening due to the political instability in this country. And as one of a political party who is in opposition, we are really trying to keep the government of the day in checks and balances. And as the ruling government also should guard their loyalty based on their credential, because all of us, we are Kenyans, na tukiongea tunaongea kama kwa Kenya, tunataka nchi moja, atuongei kuwapinga. And the government also should not dictate and force all the young people, all the PWDs, all the women to be entrepreneurs. There are some field in this country are like talents. You cannot force call the young people to be the entrepreneurs in this country. Who will be the consumer? And it's my prayer and wish that this government should avoid appointments of people based on their spelling of their name, the color of their skin, and where they're coming from. I'm not talking this because I think that I'm from Karanda tribe. No, I'm a Nandi, the same tribe with the president. But it's so bad to see the public image of every state. The appointment is of one tribe and of older people. Let us also see young people in those positions, regardless of their experience.
Thank you.
You cannot. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dominic, for bringing out the issue about exchange rates and that the government should focus on solving the issue about strengthening our currency through monetary policies and proper fiscal policies. Let me hear Juliet's thought on this in 2 minutes as we wind up.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elvis. I'll try to keep it short. I can't emphasize on political instability much because I think it's because of this that we have the inflation. It's because of this that we have the unemployment, the currency depreciations, the energy costs rising, and so on and so forth. But I think also the main factor that has not been mentioned, two of them. Number one is the pandemic, because the truth is we just had our election last year, but even before that, we were trying to recover from the pandemic, which really resulted into a very high cost of living. The other thing is on the issue of climate change, which has really been on the front lines in our recent debates, and Kenya has not been left behind. We've experienced long periods of drought in the country, which has resulted to crop failure. We have infestations in our farms, which are climate induced, that have reduced the yields for different farmers. And in the recent news, we had US in Kishu, where we have our maize production. They currently have an infestation by caterpillars, and this could be also a climate-induced catastrophe. So climate change has also played a really huge role when it comes to the cost of living in Kenya, not to mention the water scarcity in different areas, which has deprived the access of clean water for sanitation, for drinking, for irrigation, further impacting the cost of living. And also bearing in mind the issue of rural migration due to our climate-induced rural-urban migration, which has had impacts on agriculture. No one is left back in the rural areas to produce crops. So this means that we have a reduced labor in the rural areas. What happens there? The cost of living is then affected, but also the strain in the resources in the city where people are trying to migrate into. That also puts a strain, and that results into the high cost of living. So in the short term, what I think can really happen is we can have programs such as tax relief being put on different goods. We can also have price controls for food commodities, as well as social safety nets for the vulnerable groups. Wanjiko has emphasized this, especially women and girls who are now at the forefront of the even being impacted by the high cost of living, pushing them to do the unthinkable, which I won't go into the nitty-gritties of that. In the long term, our government really needs to be more intentional in investing in agriculture, but also someone also raised the question of economic diversification. We have relied in agriculture for the longest time. How then can we also think about other ways of boosting our economy? Lastly, it's important for us as a country to tackle corruption, and this is not a government responsibility. It is your responsibility. It is my responsibility to put in the right leaders in place, leaders who have integrity, because then we will keep having cycles of corruption, which will in turn negatively impact our economy. Thank you. And my call to action for young people is to just trust the process. It's not easy. Almost all odds are against young people. but mine is to encourage us to keep the faith and keep the fire burning. And we are the leaders of this country. So change starts with you and I. And if we unite our heads and fight against all of these vices, we will definitely emerge victorious. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Let me hear Josephine on her final words. In 2 minutes. Josephine.
Thank you, Elvis, and my fellow panelists for your submission. So you asked what is contributing to the current high cost of living. And I think a lot has been said, and as we can see, it is multifaceted issues which are contributing to that. Some of them being internal, as we have seen, the politics of the day, the cost of purchase, and of course, international impacts, which are rising from supply chain disruptions because of, the high cost of oil, and also the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But again, the reason as to why everyone is feeling the high cost of living is because I don't think we really get the value of the resources or services. We don't get the value for services given the amount of taxation that we pay to the government. And if the government could at least do something around effective implementation of the plans that they have in place, then at least wananchi will not feel the pain of, cost of out of pocket for healthcare. Someone will not feel the cost of agriculture. Someone will not feel the impact of, school fees and what have you. So if we are really to, the government, if it really wants to help in this, even with the cost, with the issues brought about by the protests and the Mandamano stuff, I think the government still has a role to play in the implementation of the budgets. Most of the time, we have very good policies, but they never see the light of the day because of implementation. And I know we have spoken about the issue of entrepreneurship and youth employment, but do you know how many young people are, they hold the government. The government holds them because of what you call the pending bills. We never see implementation of what the government wants to do. And a very good example is right now, the government is in the first quarter of implementing 2023-2024 budget. But I can tell you for sure, before we get to September, anything that we'll see in the reports will be like, we were unable to achieve a lot because of Mandamano, because we failed in revenue shortfalls and what have you. And therefore, for me, is that something can be done about it. Number one, it is the sole responsibility for the government to deliver the services. And at least we have to see the value of taxes that we pay. Number two, every person has a responsibility. The young people, we have a responsibility. Let us do our part. Let us be part of the policy processes. And I usually say budget is one of the biggest policy tool that we have to influence and even change our future. And also, the government has a role, number one, to leverage on innovation and technology. Number two, the government has a role to bridge the skills gap and make it a more sustainable way through mentorship and internship. The government has to bring about entrepreneurship and make people understand the ecosystem and ensure there's a very good environment for doing business. There's ease of doing business. And of course, the taxation part of it. And one of the other issues that is really contributing is the issues of debt. For every 100 shillings that the government is collecting today, at least 63% is going to pay debt. So what that means is that you're basically remaining with 27 shillings for provision of services. And therefore, this issue, we have to address them holistically and one by one if we are to achieve an inclusive, a transparent, and an accountable country, Kenya. So thank you for your time. And it was good being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine, for that. Let me hear Kevin as the final speaker on this in 2 minutes.
Right, thank you, Elvis, and also thank you, fellow panelists. I agree with all that has been said regarding what contributes to the cost of living. as I think as a nation, we have had unfortunate incidences. Like, for instance, we just came from a pandemic. After the pandemic, there was the drought. After the drought, we had, of course, the Russia-Ukraine conflict that, of course, affected Africa, and Kenya is not an exemption, because most of imports in terms of in maybe form of grains and fertilizers, most of it maybe come from Ukraine. So that was a bit of a hindrance, or something that has really affected the cost of commodities in the country. And also that we are just from an election that if you ask every Kenyan, people have not moved on from that. And there's also now there is a lot that has come as a result of that. So we have had successive incidences of things that contribute to maybe economic downfall in a sense. So all that when put together, of course, the cost of commodities, the cost of services are going up. And what the government needs to do, or what I would say maybe they can think of as a government, maybe the role is to ensure that at least the population is cushioned against these unfortunate incidences. And I'm not sure if our government is doing the best they can, because there is just the finance bill that, of course, we are waiting for the outcome in a few maybe I would just say in a day. So, and whatever is being proposed in that finance bill is some of which will also bring more pain. And I think what the government could maybe consider is to introduce these things maybe in bit. Like, for instance, you find there is, of course, the fiscal policies by the government, and also in that aspect, you find also there's also financial policies by the central bank. You find that right now, the interest rates have gone high. Yeah, so the interest rates are going high against new taxation. So you find that the population is being pushed from both sides. Yeah, the way you could maybe get loans or maybe get financial services, the interests are just crazy. And then this side government is taxing a lot. So I think maybe what could be considered is, for instance, if you find the government policies, the policies are being introduced by the government are not favorable, or maybe like these ones we have taxation policies, maybe you find that the interest rate maybe could be maybe comes lower, so that people can be able to access the financial support in terms of have access to loans and all that. So I think at this point, Kenyans, we still need to live. As the government is promising us heaven. No one wants to die in the process of waiting for the heaven. So and the intervening period, as we wait for, because there are a lot that this government has promised, and if these are among the things that will get us there, then the population just need to feel the trust that the government has their interest at heart. But if the government itself, if the people feel that the government is not even listening to the population, then that also causes a lot of anger among the population against this high cost of living, because right now everything is high. Yeah, the fuel, the fuel just increased and all that. So we hope that this will change in the near future. It's not maybe really it's not really going to happen in a twinkle of an eye, or going to happen in a moment. But in the intervening period, I think government should think of interventions that can help lower this burden of the wananchi. And among them could even to rethink of this tax that is being introduced. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin, for that and for your submission. A lot has been said. I know something meaningful is going to come out of this, a report out of this conversation, which would be very critical in ensuring that these recommendations reach to the tables that are supposed to make the decisions that affect this country or impact on our daily livelihoods. I would really like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for taking part in this conversation. Alan Chacha, who is the CEO of USPAC, Juliet Oluoch, who is a research associate, Josephine Nyamai, Kevin Onyando, Wanjiku, and even Dominic for taking time to be with us this afternoon in this important discussion, and to thank all the others who have joined us in this call. More than 30 of you have been staying with us throughout this call. Paineto, Senator Ken Babu, and all the rest who have been on this call. We recognize you and we thank you for staying with us. And for those all those who have been following live on YouTube, we really want to thank you, and also to thank the organizers, Center for Multi-Party Democracy, for creating this space for young people to talk and to discuss issues that are affecting this country, and for opening up the space for a diverse group of young people to come in on such conversations and contribute to the issues that really matter to this nation. And also the partners, Uraia Trust and Royal Danish Embassy, it's a big thank you for the support towards these conversations. At this juncture, I want to bring on board I don't know whether Mr. Mwita is still in the call, but I would like to invite him and hand over officially this to him to give us our closing remarks. And of course, I've been your moderator, Elvis Wambura. It's always a pleasure to have you on this call. And we hope that CMD will continue providing such platforms where we are able to discuss and give recommendations as is required. So let me invite Mr. Mwita. I can see he's on the call. If he's there and he can hear me, to give his final submissions. I don't know whether he can hear me, if he's there, or Thomas, if you can hear me. On behalf of the organizers. Well, looks like they are not with us in this call. I'd just like us to end it there, and thank you once again for joining in the call. Until next time, nimeshukuru sana, asanteni, bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you and bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.
Shukran.